The stars were silent, cold, and endless. Earth rotated slowly beneath the pale light of the sun, unaware of the shadow creeping closer. High above, in the orbital station circling the planet, Admiral Helen Riker stood rigid, her eyes fixed on the blinking monitors. Red warnings flashed across every screen, filling the bridge with urgency and tension. She could hear the nervous chatter of her officers, the hurried footsteps of crew members preparing for the worst. "They're here," whispered a young lieutenant, his voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "The Jaran fleet. It's coming for Sol." Helen's chest tightened. She had known this day would come. The Jarans were infamous across the galaxy, a ruthless empire that had burned every human colony they had ever found. Entire worlds had vanished under their attacks. Cities had turned to rubble. Skies had burned with the cries of the innocent, and oceans had boiled away under the alien weapons. And now Earth, the heart of humanity, was their next target. Her mind flashed to the colonies in the outer systems. She had read every report, memorized every story of horror. Children hiding under collapsed buildings, mothers clutching the ashes of their homes, soldiers dying with courage but no hope. Humanity had resisted wherever it could, but resistance had often meant death. Still, Helen refused to let despair take hold. "Not here, not now. Evacuation protocols?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. The lieutenant shook his head. "Impossible, Admiral. They've cut off the jump lanes. Every escape route is blocked. We're trapped." Helen's jaw tightened. Fear did not control her. Humanity's strength had never been in numbers or weapons alone. It was in spirit. The will to survive, the courage to fight against impossible odds, and she would harness every ounce of it. "Activate all defense systems," Helen commanded. "Alert every ship, every fleet in range. Tell them we will not surrender. Humanity will fight." On Earth, ordinary people were already noticing the changes in the sky. Satellites flickered as the first signs of the Jaran Armada appeared. The massive warships moved with deadly precision, their hulls dark as void itself, their engines glowing like distant fire. Citizens stared upward, fear etched on every face. Mothers held their children tightly. Lovers clung to each other. Soldiers and scientists alike prepared for the moment that could decide the fate of the human race. Helen turned to her second-in-command. "Send a transmission. Let every human know the truth. They must understand what we face and why we cannot surrender." The message went out across every channel, every colony, every ship in deep space. Every human received the words, "They burned our colonies." They thought humanity was weak. They were wrong. We are Earth, and Earth does not surrender. In the endless darkness of space, the Jaran fleet loomed, massive and silent, confident in the knowledge of its power. But the human fleet, though small and battered, positioned itself to meet them. Every human aboard felt the weight of the coming battle, the fear of death, and the burning determination to fight for every world that had fallen. Helen gripped the edge of the command console, her knuckles white. She whispered almost to herself, a vow she carried in her heart. "For every world you burned, for every life you took, you will pay. Humanity will rise from the ashes." The stars seemed to pause, holding their breath. In the void of space, among the cold light of distant suns, the defiance of a species that refused to die had begun. Humanity's war had started, not as victims but as a force that would make the universe remember the name of Earth. The silence of space shattered with fire and light. The Jaran fleet had arrived, their massive warships cutting through the void like blades. From Earth's orbit, the human fleet looked tiny, almost fragile. Yet in the hearts of its crews there burned a fire no alien weapon could extinguish. Admiral Helen Riker stood on the bridge of the command ship Valor, her eyes scanning the approaching enemy. She could feel the tension in the air, the fear coiled like a snake in every crew member's chest. Yet she also felt something stronger, a fierce determination. Humanity had lost too much to fall quietly. "They're closing in, Admiral," said Lieutenant Marcus, pointing to the sensor readings. "We'll be in range in 30 seconds. Helen nodded. "All weapons ready. Target their lead ships. Let them know Earth fights." The first shots erupted. Humanity's pulse cannons lit up the darkness, streaks of energy slicing toward the nearest Jaran dreadnought. Explosions flared as alien shields sparked under the assault. For a brief moment, the human fleet felt hope. They were small, but they were defiant. On one of the smaller human ships, Sergeant Lyra Kane gripped her station. Her hands shook not from fear but from adrenaline. Every life she had lost in the colonies flashed before her eyes. the families she had tried to save, the friends she had buried in distant star systems. Now she had a chance to fight back. And she would. A Jaren destroyer struck first. A massive energy beam tore through the Valor's shields, throwing the bridge into chaos. Sparks rained down as alarms screamed. Crew members shouted, some cowering, some rushing to contain the damage. Helen's voice cut through the panic, firm and unwavering. "Hold your stations! Fire again! Humanity does not break." Her words were a lifeline. The crew steadied themselves and the Valor returned fire with precise coordination. Another Jaren ship exploded into shards of metal, drifting silently in the void. A cheer echoed briefly, swallowed immediately by the roar of battle. Below in the hangar, fighter pilots prepared for launch. Young cadets who had never seen a real fight gripped the controls of their small ships, their hearts pounding. Captain Rian Vega, one of Earth's best, led the squadron. "Remember," he said, voice low but steady, "they destroyed our colonies. They think we are weak. Let's show them how wrong they are." As the fighters soared into space, the battle intensified. Explosions turned the darkness into a field of glowing debris. Ships collided. Missiles streaked like falling stars, and the void seemed to tremble with the force of the clash. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, yet every human fought with a courage that defied the impossible. On the Valor, Helen watched as one human destroyer was ripped apart by a Jaren beam. She felt the familiar ache of loss, the gnawing grief for every soul that fell in defense of Earth. But she also felt pride. Each human who stood, each fighter who launched, was proof that the spirit of humanity could not be extinguished. Hours passed like minutes. Every moment was a test of endurance, strategy, and willpower. And then a daring maneuver by Vega's squadron broke the enemy's formation. Jaren's ships began to falter, confused by the human fleet's unexpected precision and bravery. Helen allowed herself a small, grim smile. Humanity had struck a blow, small but powerful. A message had been sent not just to the Jarens, but to every human. We will fight and we will not surrender. As the first glow of distant stars reflected off the wreckage of the battlefield, Helen whispered, her voice full of promise and vengeance. "For every colony you burned, we will take something from you. And this is only the beginning." The battle had only just begun, yet humanity's heart had already spoken louder than any weapon. They would rise even from the brink of annihilation and make the universe remember the name of Earth. The void of space was filled with fire, smoke, and shattered metal. The Jaren fleet had underestimated humanity. They had expected fear, surrender, and silence. Instead, they found defiance, courage, and relentless resistance. Every explosion, every daring maneuver from the human fleet sent a clear message. Earth would not fall quietly. Admiral Helen Riker stood on the bridge of the Valor, her eyes scanning the battlefield. Sensors tracked every movement of the Jaren warships. Thousands of kilometers away, human fighters darted like sparks in the darkness, striking with precision and disappearing before the aliens could react. Helen's hands gripped the console, knuckles white as her mind raced through calculations and strategies. Every life mattered. Every moment counted. In the midst of battle, Commander Jace Corps led a squadron of bombers on a dangerous mission to break through the Jaren defense line. Their target, the main command ship of the alien fleet. The humans knew the risks. If they failed, hundreds of lives would be lost. If they succeeded, the tide of the war could turn. "We do this for every colony they destroyed," Jace whispered to his crew as they prepared to jump into the firing corridor. "Every world, every home. We carry their memory with us." The bombers surged forward. The Jarens unleashed waves of energy beams and missile swarms, trying to stop them. Explosions lit up the darkness like artificial stars, and alarms rang across human ships. One bomber was struck and shredded into pieces. Another spiraled out of control, sending a flare of light into the void. Yet the squadron pressed on. Courage burned brighter than fear. Back on the Valor, Helen watched the mission unfold. She felt a pang of grief for each human risking their life, but she also felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its strongest, not because of technology, but because of spirit. Every pilot, every sailor, every soldier was a testament to human resilience. Then it happened. The bombers reached the Jaren command ship. With perfect timing, their warheads ignited, ripping through the alien armor. The explosion was massive, a fiery bloom against the blackness of space. Sensors showed the command ship disintegrating. the alien fleet momentarily thrown into chaos. Cheers erupted across the human fleet, but the joy was bittersweet. Each victory came with the cost of human lives lost, and Helen could feel the weight of each one. On the ground in Earth's cities, people watched transmissions of the battle. Faces pale with fear and hope alike, they saw humanity fighting back. Children stared at the screens with wide eyes. Mothers and fathers clutched hands tightly, and soldiers on training grounds felt a renewed sense of purpose. The message was clear. Earth would not surrender. Earth would fight even against the mightiest foe. Among the human fleet, sacrifices continued. Lieutenant Kane, who had survived the first strike, piloted a fighter deep into enemy lines to protect a convoy of civilian escape ships. Her ship was hit multiple times, systems failing, alarms screaming, yet she pressed on, her mind focused on one goal, ensuring that even a few lives survived the wrath of the Gerons. Helen watched from the bridge, heart heavy, as the fighter disappeared into a hail of fire. She whispered a silent prayer, honoring the bravery of every human giving their all. This war was not just about survival. It was about vengeance, justice, and proving that the universe could not erase humanity so easily. The human fleet had struck back, and the Gerons were reeling. Yet Helen knew this was only the beginning. The enemy would regroup. They would retaliate. But humanity had shown its strength, courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable spirit. Looking out at the stars, Helen made a vow for every fallen human, every burned colony, and every life lost, for every world they destroyed, for every soul they tried to erase. We will fight. We will rise, and we will burn brighter than the stars themselves. The battle had shifted. The humans were no longer merely defending, they were striking back. And in the hearts of every human watching, fighting, and surviving, hope began to burn like a beacon in the dark, unstoppable and eternal. The battle had raged for hours, yet the human fleet had not faltered. Every ship, every fighter, every soul in the void carried the weight of countless lost colonies. Earth's defenses had held, and humanity had struck the first blow. But Helen Riker knew the Gerons would not forgive such defiance. They would come back with a fury greater than before. On the bridge of the Valor, Helen watched the enemy regroup. The Gerons were relentless, calculating, and merciless. Their remaining ships formed a crescent around the human fleet, weapons charged and ready. Helen could feel the tension coiling like a storm inside her chest. The lives of billions rested on this moment. One mistake, one hesitation, and the humans would be annihilated. "Admiral, their reinforcements are approaching from the outer sectors," reported Lieutenant Marcus. "They're bringing their heavy cruisers. Estimates say at least 50 more ships." Helen's jaw tightened. "Prepare the planetary defense systems. Alert every fleet in range. If they think they can crush us, they are wrong." On Earth, people braced themselves. Cities went into blackout. Emergency sirens wailed, and citizens took shelter. Yet amidst the fear, there was something else, hope. For the first time in decades, humanity saw that they were not entirely powerless. Their warriors, their pilots, their scientists were standing against a galactic empire and refusing to break. In the human fleet, Captain Rian Vega led his fighters in daring raids, slipping through the enemy lines like shadows. Each strike was precise, aimed at crippling Jaran systems, stealing their momentum and buying precious time for Earth's defenses. The pilots knew the risks. Many would not return, yet they fought not just for survival, but for revenge for every burned colony, every innocent life lost. Meanwhile, Helen coordinated a bold strategy. Earth's hidden fleets, rumors of which had long circulated among the Jarans, were moving into position. Massive weapons platforms, cloaked and waiting for this exact moment, began to emerge from the shadows of distant moons and asteroid belts. This was humanity's gamble. Strike hard and fast or risk losing everything. Lieutenant Kane, though injured from the first strike, volunteered to lead a key operation. Her mission was dangerous, almost suicidal. She would lead a small strike team to disable the Gerons' heavy cruisers from within. Helen looked at her, saw the determination burning in her eyes, and nodded. Courage like this was what made humans different. Courage, sacrifice, and a refusal to bow to fear. The battle escalated. Explosions lit the void like supernovae. Ships collided, energy beams tore through the darkness, and alarms screamed across every human bridge. Yet, despite the chaos, humanity fought with precision. Every loss was mourned, every victory celebrated, and every moment was a step toward survival and vengeance. On the Valor, Helen's hands hovered over the command console. She felt the weight of every life lost, every world that had burned. Her heart ached for the colonies they had failed to save, but she also felt a fire deep and unyielding. Humanity had endured centuries of threat, oppression, and destruction, and now they were fighting back with all the fury the universe had ever seen. A transmission went out from Earth to every human settlement in the galaxy. They thought we would bow. They thought we would kneel. But Earth is alive. Humanity is alive, and we will not stop until every Djaran ship lies in ashes. As the enemy fleet hesitated, unsure of the strength and audacity of their opponents, Helen whispered to herself, "They burned our colonies, but we are Earth, and Earth will burn their empire from existence." The void held its breath. Humanity had survived the first waves, and now, the stage was set for a counterstrike that would change the course of the war forever. The human fleet had endured the Djaran onslaught, but now the time had come to turn defense into devastation. From hidden positions around the outer planets and asteroid belts, Earth's secret warships emerged, massive and gleaming, their weapons charged for retribution. The moment had come to show the universe that humanity did not kneel. Humanity struck. Admiral Helen Riker stood on the bridge of the Valor, her eyes fixed on the enemy fleet. The Djarans had been arrogant, believing they could annihilate humanity with ease. Now they would learn how wrong they had been. "All units, fire on my mark," she commanded, voice firm and unwavering. "Show them the fury of Earth." Below in the hangars, fighter pilots prepared for coordinated attacks. Captain Rian Vega and his squadron led the way, weaving through enemy lines with skill born of desperation and determination. Every pilot carried memories of lost worlds, families, friends. They carried the weight of human history and the burning desire for revenge. The first strikes hit. Humanity's pulse cannons unleashed torrents of energy that tore through Djaran shields. Missiles rained like falling comets, striking warships with deadly precision. The alien fleet faltered, their formations breaking under the unexpected assault. For the first time, the humans saw fear reflected in the eyes of their enemies, fear of a species they had underestimated. In the chaos, Lieutenant Kane led her daring mission. Her small strike team penetrated the heart of the Djaran fleet, targeting their command centers and critical systems. Explosions erupted, massive fireballs illuminating the void as one enemy ship after another fell into ruin. Kane's hands were steady, her mind focused. Each push, each calculated strike, brought humanity closer to victory. Helen watched the battle unfold on the screens before her. Her chest ached with pride and sorrow. Pride for the bravery displayed, sorrow for the lives lost along the way. She remembered every colony that had burned, every cry of children she could not save, every family torn apart. And now, humanity had the chance to repay the Djarans in full measure, not with hatred but with justice. On Earth, people watched transmissions of the counterstrike. They cheered, they cried, they prayed. For the first time in generations, humans felt the power of their unity, the might of their homeworld, and the courage of their people in space. Every explosion in the void was a signal. Humanity was alive, defiant, and unstoppable. The Djaran fleet scrambled to respond, but humanity had planned every detail. Hidden warships emerged from cloaked positions, striking from angles the aliens had not anticipated. Fighters swooped down from unexpected vectors, crippling key vessels. The humans were relentless, precise and ruthless in their determination to survive. As the battle reached its climax, a massive shockwave of energy erupted from Earth's hidden superweapon. The core of a Djaran dreadnought detonated, triggering a chain reaction across the alien fleet. Entire sections of the armada disintegrated in blazing infernos, leaving only drifting wreckage and silence in their wake. Humanity's vengeance was real, undeniable, and terrifying. Helen's eyes glimmered with tears, tears of sorrow, of relief, and of triumph. She whispered to herself, voice barely audible over the alarms, "For every colony you burned, for every life you took, you are gone." Even in victory, the cost was clear. Human ships had been lost. Brave pilots and crews had perished. But the spirit of humanity remained unbroken, stronger than ever. They had risen from the ashes of burned colonies and turned the tide of the galaxy. The void seemed quieter now, as if even the stars were watching. The Djaran Empire had been shattered, but the story of humanity's courage would echo forever. Humanity had proven that they would not bow, that they would not surrender, and that no empire, no matter how powerful, could erase Earth from existence. And somewhere in the heart of the human fleet, Admiral Helen Riker knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen the rise of a force it could never ignore. Earth, the void of space, was quiet now. Where once fleets had clashed in fire and fury, there remained only drifting debris and the faint glow of distant stars. Humanity had won, but the victory was bittersweet. Every pilot lost, every ship destroyed, every life spent defending Earth weighed heavily on the hearts of those who survived. Admiral Helen Riker stood on the bridge of the Valor, her eyes scanning the aftermath of the battle. Wreckage floated in the distance. Jaren ships torn apart, twisted metal spinning endlessly. Human vessels were damaged too, some drifting, their crews struggling to maintain control. Helen felt a mixture of pride and grief. Pride for the courage of every human who had fought. Grief for the lives lost, the families destroyed, the colonies that would never see their children again. Lieutenant Marcus approached quietly, carrying a tablet with casualty reports. Helen did not need to look. She already knew the cost. "How many survived?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "Most of the main fleet, Admiral," Marcus replied. "But losses, heavy. Too many to count in a moment." Helen nodded. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the weight of the moment settle. Humanity had paid a high price, but they had struck a blow that would be remembered for generations. The Jaran's empire, once so vast and unchallenged, had crumbled under the resolve of Earth's people. Below, in the human cities, people celebrated and mourned at the same time. Families embraced in the streets, tears flowing freely. They had survived and their enemies had been destroyed. Yet the memories of burned colonies and lost friends lingered like shadows. Children who had never known the terror of invasion now stared at the night sky, imagining the battles fought among the stars. They knew in some small way that they had inherited the courage of those who fought for them. On the front lines, Captain Rian Vega's squadron regrouped. They had seen horrors no one should ever witness, yet they had also seen courage beyond imagining. Vega looked around at his team, his voice low but firm. "We lost friends," he said, "but we also showed the universe what humanity is." They thought we would break. They were wrong. In another sector, Lieutenant Kane returned from her strike mission, her ship battered and smoking. She had survived, but many of her squad had not. She walked through the hangar silently, honoring the bravery of those who had given everything. Each loss was a wound, but each life saved was a triumph. She realized then that humanity's strength was not just in technology or weapons. It was in the heart, in the will to endure against impossible odds. Admiral Helen gathered her senior officers. "This war is not just about survival anymore," she said, her voice steady, carrying both sorrow and determination. "It's about remembering every colony, every soul lost, every act of courage. Humanity will rebuild stronger and wiser, and any who threaten us again will know that Earth does not forgive easily." The crew nodded, inspired by her words. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. Yet they knew the universe was vast, full of threats and challenges. Humanity's journey was only beginning, but one thing was certain: they would never be cowed. They would never surrender. As Helen looked out the observation window at the silent stars, she whispered a vow to every life lost, to every colony burned. "We carry your memory in our hearts. We rise from the ashes stronger, braver, and unbroken. The universe will remember that humanity does not kneel. We are Earth." And in that quiet, floating above a battered but undefeated planet, humanity's spirit shone brighter than any star. They had survived the fire, endured the loss, and proven that the heart of Earth could never be destroyed. The remnants of the Jaran fleet floated in disarray, crippled and broken. Smoke and fire drifted across the void where once a mighty empire had ruled without challenge. Humanity had risen from the ashes of its burned colonies, and now the universe would bear witness to Earth's vengeance. Admiral Helen Riker stood on the bridge of the Valor, her eyes scanning the wreckage. Every monitor told the same story. The Jaran command ships were gone, their cruisers destroyed or drifting aimlessly, their soldiers scattered or defeated. It was over. The empire that had terrorized humanity for generations had been annihilated by a single species' courage, determination, and relentless heart. Yet Helen felt no joy in triumph. The cost had been immense. Thousands of humans had given their lives to ensure this victory. Every pilot, every sailor, every crew member lost was a wound that would never fully heal. She touched the edge of the console, whispering their names in her heart, honoring their sacrifice. "You are not forgotten," she murmured. In orbit around Earth, the surviving human fleet regrouped. Ships bore scars of battle, some barely holding together, yet the crew stood tall. Captain Rian Vega looked out at the debris field, awe and sorrow mingling in his eyes. "We've won," he said quietly to his squadron, "but we'll carry the memory of this fight forever. Every life lost, every world burned. It will shape the future of humanity." Below on Earth, people gathered to witness the aftermath. Cities were still battered by the earlier waves of panic and blackouts, but hope had returned. Children stared at the sky, imagining the war fought among the stars, inspired by the courage of their defenders. Families reunited, clinging to one another, grateful for survival, yet mindful of the lives that would never return. Humanity's victory had come at a cost, but it had also reaffirmed their unbreakable spirit. Lieutenant Kane, her ship repaired and crew intact, stood among her comrades. She thought of the friends who had fallen, the missions that had nearly ended in disaster, and the faces of the colonies lost to the Jaran fire. And yet she felt pride. Humanity had taken a blow, stood tall, and struck back with a power no enemy could ignore. "We are Earth," she whispered, "and we cannot be erased." Helen gathered her officers for a final report. "The Jaran Empire is no more," she said, her voice carrying the weight of both sorrow and triumph. "Every ship we destroyed, every command we dismantled has sent a message to the universe. Humanity is alive, strong, and unbowed. Let this be remembered, not as vengeance alone, but as a testament to what we are capable of when united." Transmission channels lit up across human colonies and settlements. The message was simple, yet it carried the soul of humanity. They burned our colonies. They thought we were weak. They were wrong. Earth survives. Humanity endures, and the universe will never forget it. As the stars reflected off the scattered remains of the Jaran fleet, Helen allowed herself a long, quiet breath. The war was over. Humanity had won. The pain of loss would linger, but the pride of survival, courage, and unity would echo through generations. Somewhere in the endless night of space, a single thought settled in every human heart. No matter how dark the universe, no matter how powerful the enemy, humanity would rise, rebuild, and thrive. They had faced annihilation and had emerged victorious, their spirits stronger than ever. Helen looked at the stars, her heart full of sorrow and hope, and whispered one last vow to every fallen soul. "Every burned colony, every life lost to the Jarans, you are remembered. We are Earth, and we will never be defeated." In that moment, the void seemed to hum with the strength of humanity. The stars shone brighter, the universe bore witness, and the legacy of Earth was written in fire and courage. Humanity had survived, humanity had fought, and humanity had won. The empire of the Jarans had burned, but from the ashes, Earth would shine forever.